right. So seriously, this is my devotional thought for the day. We're going to jump into insanity, and I need to always dig into the word before I get going. In Oswald Chambers, in that part of my reading today, I found that it says, he said, the purpose of Pentecost was not to teach the disciples something, but to make them the incarnation of what they preached, so that they would literally become God's message in the flesh. That's awesome. And then it says, Acts 1:8 says, you will be witnesses to me. That's what Jesus said to them. So let's get this straight. Think about what that means. You shall be witnesses to me, toward me, about me. It's not just we're talking about Jesus and what he did in our lives. When we share what Jesus did in our lives, we're sharing it as if we're sharing it to Jesus in the moment. The focus is on Jesus, the purpose Jesus, and it's going for Jesus. So we're not sharing what Jesus did to lift us up, and we're not sharing what Jesus did in order to make people think that we're better. We're sharing what Jesus did because Jesus is there with us, and he deserves glory, and we lift him up, and then he is revealed in the moment. He appears before them. It's like we're saying, here's my best friend, shake his hand. We're actually doing a handoff in the moment, and he's there in the midst of it. That's why we will overcome this dragon in the end by the power of the word of our testimony and the blood of the Lamb. We are handing him off to the Lamb. Here he is. It's his blood that did this. And when you do that and you become that incarnation of the message owns you. The person of the message owns you, and you're testifying back to him, and he's right there in that space with you, and you're more cognizant of him than the people listening you telling. Then you take all the focus off of you, and you put all the focus on Jesus. You lift Jesus up, and Christ becomes lifted up, and Jesus becomes Lord in that moment, and every knee bows, every tongue confesses. So here's the deal. How many of us are preaching ourselves? How many of us, when we preach what Jesus did, it's about lifting ourselves up? And how many of us, when we are telling those messages of what Jesus did, we're not aware that he could be there in the moment, and we just tell it and it's done? Folks, when we're telling it and we're there in his name with two or more, he's there in the midst of us. We are literally saying, Jesus is here. This is what he did. This is proof of his presence, his reality. Jesus, I'm telling this to you, to them, and in front of them. Here's my Jesus, my closest friend, my dearest beloved. You need to know him. He wants to love you. He wants to know you too. Meet my Jesus. Meet him. He's right here. And Jesus, the God of all creation, Yeshua, Yahweh, the Trinity, the fullness of the Holy Spirit and the Father, the Godhead, the whole presence of God will come in that moment and encounter people. And then he takes over. So the question is who are we preaching? Are we preaching to us or to them? Are we preaching us to them? Are we preaching what Jesus did to us to them? Or are we preaching what Jesus did to us to him? Who's our audience? Who are we doing this for? Who's our focus on? Are we aware of him? It's time we become more aware of the Holy Spirit of God, of Jesus in the moment, than we are of anyone else around, and let every inhibition fall away, because he has become more real to us than anything in the world. Everything fades away in his nearness, right? Come on, we can do this. Go share what Jesus has done to them, but to Jesus, and introduce them to him. It's time. Awesome.